Hello everyone. Good afternoon to you all. Thank you for joining us this Saturday. Thank you for taking out your time to ensure you're here today. My name is King and I'll be chairing this meeting. So, a brief overview about New Citizens Youth Program. New Citizens Youth Program is a non-governmental organization that is on a mission to help African students as well as Caribbean students come study in the US on full scholarship. So I've been able to place over 150 students across HBCUs across the US, and we hope to keep increasing as we move on across the years. So today we're going to be covering our last workshop of our series. We've had 3 workshops so far. This is the last one. If you want to catch up on any of the workshops you might have possibly missed, please feel free to check out our YouTube channel. The link and other information as you guys have to be shared towards the end of the meeting. So today we are joined by 2 very accomplished individuals who will be giving us very insightful advice today. The first person we have with us is Arnold Baby. Arnold is a recent graduate of Alabama State University and an alumnus of the New Citizen Youth Program. Arnold currently works at Microsoft as a software engineer. He began his journey in tech through various internships at Library of Congress, Google, and Microsoft, alongside an externship with Paragon One. Beyond these technical pursuits, Arnold is also passionate about mentoring and education. He served as a technical interview coach at CodePath, taught data structures at EdLift, and introduced high school students to computer science through Microsoft Teals program. In his free time, Arnold loves sports, watching anime, or exploring outdoors. Secondly, we'll be joined by Chimwemwe. Chimwemwe is a member of NYSP class of 2016 and a graduate of Payne College, where she earned a BSc in biology. Following her graduation, she joined Novartis as a postbac scholar, gaining valuable experience over 2 years. She then pursued a PhD in biological sciences at the illustrious Harvard University. So I'm going to hand it over to our speakers today. I hope you all learn a lot from this session and it's as insightful as it will be to me. Our speakers, please.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for the introductions. And thanks, everyone, for joining us today. I'm going to just quickly try and share my slides real quickly. Okay, can everybody see my slides okay?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for joining. So today we'll be, as King mentioned, we'll be focusing on just some strategies and practical advice on what we should do about, thinking about grad school or full-time employment after undergrad degrees. And so, there we go. So this is what the agenda will look like. So we'll both talk about our personal journeys, basically from undergrad to where we are now. And then we'll have a question and answer session where we have pre-prepared questions that we thought were really important for you all to know. And then we'll open the floor up to your questions. So feel free to either shout it out through the mic or paste it in the chat as well. We'll be monitoring both of those. And then the last section will provide some more resources and tips, basically with regards to grad school or applying for full-time roles. All right, so let's jump right into it. All right, as mentioned, my name is Chimwemwe. So I am from Zambia and came to the US through New Seasons in 2012, I believe. Yeah. And so initially when I came to the US, my goal was to go to med school. So I started with a pre-med biology degree at Payne College. And so whilst I was at Payne College, because I wanted to go to to med school at the time, in my first or second year, I think I started to research like how does one person go to med school in the US, right? And then I realized that there were a number of things that people had to do, and one of them was shadowing doctors, and another thing was pursuing research opportunities like at your school or during the summers. And so I then began shadowing a couple of doctors at like local hospitals and also volunteering my time. And I quickly learned that being in the hospital was definitely not for me. I tried different kinds of doctors and just didn't feel quite that route wasn't for me. But what I really enjoyed was being in the lab. So my school was really small, small college in Georgia, maybe like less than 1,000 people. And we didn't really have a lot of research opportunities, but we had one lab that was working on using things like algae and other microbes to break down environmental contaminants. And I thought that was pretty cool that we could use things that maybe we wouldn't have regarded as useful in our environment to break down like chemical spills, for instance, and make it in a more sustainable way. Especially in places where we come from, where maybe we might not have other more sophisticated means of clearing up like environmental spills, such as like in rivers and things like that. And so that experience for me opened up my eyes to how we could use science for the betterment of essentially human health. And so after that experience working in the lab at my college, I had like my professors who encouraged me to seek opportunities outside of just like my college and to apply to other bigger institutions where I could then, gain more experience in research. And so about my junior year of college that summer, maybe before, I can't remember now, I applied to multiple internships and then I ended up deciding to go to Keck School of Medicine at the University of Southern California. And I did a bridge program, which was like a 3-month-long program that was essentially introducing individuals who hadn't had a lot of research experience into getting them experience in the lab and just seeing how we could use science for the betterment of human health. And so I joined a lab of one of the professors there, and in her lab, I was working on seeing how we could use some particular kind of cells in the pancreas to produce more insulin for patients with diabetes. And for me, that experience was really eye-opening. First of all, I joined a lab of a female Black PI or Black investigator. And that was the first time I was seeing like somebody who kind of looked like me in like a big institution like University of Southern California, who was doing amazing research and really like mentoring the next generation of scientists. And I said, okay, if she can do it, then maybe I can also do something similar. And I think it was through her mentorship that I was really encouraged to consider going to graduate school. And so after that summer, I went back to college and completed that year. And at this time, I was like at the end, beginning my senior year now. I knew that, okay, like I really like research, but then I still wasn't quite sure if like I wanted to close the door on med school yet. And so I then decided, okay, there's nothing I can do now. Let me just apply to graduate school because at that point I had already missed some of the med school deadlines. So I just decided, let me just apply to grad school and I'll maybe apply to a couple of summer programs. And then maybe I'll also apply to like post-bac programs, which are like gap year type of programs. And so at that point, I applied to a couple. I got into a couple of graduate schools, but then I also got into this summer program at Novartis, which is a pharmaceutical company that's based in Boston. And so at that point, I thought, okay, if I go to grad school at this point, I am not sure if I want to close the door in med school yet, but if I go to grad school, that means I've sort of like selected a path for myself. But if I give myself some more time and do the summer program and see where it goes, maybe I might figure out my life. And so instead of going to grad school, like right after college, I decided to first start with this summer research program. For me, this program was really key because first of all, it was an industry, and I really wanted to see how research was done in industry because this is where now you're doing research that can now be applied to like drug development. And I was really interested in that aspect and seeing that sort of transition between like the bedside, which is the patient side, to the bench, which is where you do your research and where you ask your questions to make the medicines, and then going back to the patient as well. And so I worked in the lab for like 3 months, and then at the end of the program, I got an offer to do their 2-year post-bac program, which was essentially a program that was set out for people like me who were sort of like trying to figure out what to do after undergrad, but were really interested in research and knew that like that was an interest, but just wanted to build more skills and just to figure out what kind of research was interesting or like, whether to go the MD medical school route or the PhD route or even both. And so I did that for 2 years and I really loved the experience. I think it gave me more opportunity to sort of figure out what my interests in science were, and also gave me time to kind of take a break from school, which I felt that I needed because coming from like an intense sort of 4-year experience where I'm like, okay, I need to get to medical school, I need to get to grad school, that was a good time to sort of like just kind of take a break, figure out what I was truly passionate about. And then after the 2 years, I then applied to grad school again. And this time, I feel that my second time applying for grad school, I was more confident in terms of like talking about my research experiences, but also in terms of like where I was applying for schools, because I felt that I had the experience. And I even decided to apply to like top schools in the nation. And thankfully, I got accepted into Harvard, where I did my PhD in biological sciences. I just completed that last year. And since then, I've been just completing some of the work that I was doing in my PhD in the lab as a postdoc fellow. And then I'm starting a new position next week now at a pharmaceutical company as a strategic innovation manager. And yeah, throughout this whole talk, we will talk about a little bit more about all these different aspects. And if anybody has any questions regarding like my journey and sort of why I decided to go in these different routes and how I ended up in my position, happy to answer that as well. But for now, I will turn over to Arnold.
Awesome. Thank you. Next slide. Yeah. So I am Arnold, and yeah, I think the intro was quite low. Yeah, but yeah, I also studied. I'm actually like I came to the US 2020. That was fall 2020 in the heat of COVID. So I think I was one of the two new citizens program participants that came in 2020. So that was I think it was a miracle. Yeah. But yeah, so coming to the US, I went to Alabama State University. And at Alabama State University, I focused on biomedical engineering. And yeah, this was actually sort of like based on my sort of like interest and background that coming from Zimbabwe, I like love the sciences, and I felt that biomedical engineering combined all the four sciences for me to like have fun, and also it applied like some of the key engineering principles. So I felt quite comfortable with biomedical engineering, that I would have some fun there. Um, and also while at Alabama State University, I sort of pursued other interests like volunteering, especially with CodePath and Microsoft Teals. I think the volunteering experiences, I think they were a key part of the education part, because it was a way for me to, I think, like just use my skills to teach other people. But at the same time, I think it was a way of learning, because even though like I would say my major was basically biomedical engineering, I had developed interest in computer science. And so being able to do CodePath and being able to do Microsoft Teals, it sort of helped me like with my CS background, and also like boost it up, because as you teach others, you also learn and grow from that. So that was, I think, the education part of it. Yeah. Um, and then while still at ASU, throughout the 4 years, I had the opportunity to intern with like multiple companies. My freshman year, I found it hard to get into tech, because into tech and also into research, since I was doing biomedical engineering and also I was like doing some CS classes, I had like the options to like go into biomedical research or go into tech. So I sort of like did both. When I was freshman, I applied to the research part, did like lots of personal statements, and then also applied for tech roles. But freshman year, it was hard, so I couldn't get any of those. Research was pretty hard, so but I did manage through my library at ASU. I did manage to get into a program with HPC Library Alliance, and through that uh, relationship with HPC Library Alliance, I was able to have to like intern with the Library of Congress, where I did some research work. The research work was focused on like the library had some research that was focusing on like assessing uh, the books in the US throughout like multiple huge libraries in the US, like assessing their conditions and how they deteriorate over time. So my role there was sort of focusing on like doing interviews with the different libraries that they were interviewing with. I think it was, yeah, I forgot the libraries, but I was doing interviews to understand how each library had like had set up their different conditions and also captured data as well. And the data that I was focusing on was temperature data. So like what conditions were used in the library, and sort of get all those temperature like data sets and present to my team as well. And this sort of like timeline spanned like up to 1840, I believe. So yeah, it was a pretty interesting 6 weeks. And through that program as well, I got to apply Python, that I was like learning and building my skills in. Um, then sophomore year, I got the opportunity to intern with Google. This was a tech internship. Again, I tried to apply both for tech and research, but research I think for me was pretty hard, and I didn't like writing personal statements, because I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do then. So I always felt confused with those, even though I could write them to be nice. Yeah, but I got multiple offers my sophomore year for like different tech internships, and then I chose to go with Google. And at Google, I worked on a full stack project, full stack that is like both front end and back end kind of thing. Um, and this was my first technical internship, so it was more of a learning opportunity, and also like it exposed me to the different aspects that big tech companies like focus on when it comes to building projects, working on software projects and stuff. And also it sort of helped me sort of understand, I think, the areas that I needed to focus on um, if I was to continue with my path in tech, and also at the same time, what I needed to do after the internship as well. So after Google, I didn't get a chance to go back to Google, but I since I'd done interviews in the previous year as well, I think those helped, because with Microsoft, I just had to like reconnect again where I'd left last year, since I was interviewing with them, and that opened again the door to go to Microsoft for my junior year summer. And with Microsoft, it was the same technical internship as Google. But I think with this one was a bit different because I'd gained some experience and I'd like really worked on my sort of like you could say weaknesses, and so I felt confident with myself. And from there, I think it was a pretty straight path because um, even though during like my internship with Microsoft, it was the first day of the internship, the team was like, we don't expect to give you guys return offers, so just focus on your skills. So it was a bit scary, but still I did manage to like get the return offer. That is where I am right now with that return offer that I'm working full time with Microsoft. So it was a pretty straightforward transition once the return offer was confirmed. But in between, like the confirmation of the written offer and the acceptance, I was still applying to other companies and doing interviews and all that job application stuff. Yeah. And that is just about my journey. So since 2020, I've been sort of like doing different things. And right now I'm just with Microsoft as a full-time software engineer. Yeah. And so if you have questions about this whole path, we're going to address them maybe towards the end with student questions as well. But I think we can move on to the next session now. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Arnold.
All right.
Yeah, so the next part is the in-depth discussions. Can anybody, I'm not sure who's helping us today. Is it Zoe or?
Okay.
Uh,
Hello. Can you hear me?
we can hear you.
All right. I'll I'll be asking some of the questions. Um, so the first question here is for Arnold. Can you walk us through the process of securing internships, particularly with a big tech company like Google and Microsoft?
Okay, awesome. Good question. So I think the process is pretty standard that the first thing is to apply. And then from application, you have the interviews. And then with the interviews, that's where you also get the opportunity as well. And I think there have been some sessions focusing on like resume and just how to build your personal brand and all that kind of stuff. So all that comes into like how you prepare the application, because before you apply as well, you need to make sure that your resume is good and your application is also like solid, right? So I think yeah, the process is pretty straightforward. Application and then in interviews, and then from there it's a decision to go or not to go. And I think the main thing, I think when you're looking at big tech companies or other companies or all the companies, is to focus on your skills. Like what do you want them to notice you, or to notice the skills that you have, right? So if in your resume you can like highlight your skills, highlight the projects that you have done, and how those projects have made an impact to you, I think that would really be important. So that's on the preparation side. And then the other part is that once you have the interview, you need to go there and show them that what's on your resume and what you have said in your application aligns, right? Because sometimes you might have this like really nice resume, nice projects, but then when it comes to interviewing, you just can't show them that actually you are who you say you are. So I think it's all about you have them notice you, but after they notice you, you need to show them that actually you are who you are, and that is through the interview. Sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't work, but I think the key thing is that if one company doesn't work, then it's always like you are gonna eventually you will meet the one that works for you, right? So when it comes to the interviewing part, I think you need to be able to showcase your skills, like share what you have done, what impact that has had, either in the team that you work with, or like in whatever the goal was, right? So if your goal was to maybe use a machine learning model to like predict maybe traffic jams or anything like that, you need to actually maybe showcase how your project or how your skills that you applied in that project made an impact. Because the companies are looking at, if we hire you, are you going to come and just sit, or are you going to come and make an impact within the company? So you need to be able to showcase how you have leveraged your skills or your learning opportunities to make an impact. I think that's the key to sort of make sure that you stand out of the competition. Because again, if like I think with any other company, there's always high competition, especially now that we have the AI stuff, right? Like there's high competition because people can send in application like nice written resumes, right? So you need to make sure that once they pick you, you can stand to who you are, and you can showcase your skills and like sell your skills and say, I'm the person who can come in and make an impact within the team that I'm gonna work for. Yeah.
It's basically just showing ourselves very well. Thanks. The
Awesome.
next question is for Chimwemwe. Sorry, I can't pronounce it well. But how did your experience inform your decision to pursue graduate studies, and how did you choose the specific program?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. So for me, as I mentioned earlier, I was sort of grappling between going to med school or going to grad school. And so the first thing I did was somewhere in my first or second year of college, I researched on how to get to either one of those. So the first thing was go on Google and look up what are the requirements for going to medical school. And then from there, I learned, and also grad school, I learned that there were different requirements. So, for example, with the med school, you have to do the MCAT, which is the entrance exam. For grad school, you have to do the GRE. So I started to study for that. And then also realizing that some of the requirements also needed me to have some sort of experience. So whether it was research experience or shadowing doctors. So I started to seek out those opportunities. And those opportunities for me really answered the question as to like what I was truly passionate about. In terms of the research, that was the first time I was ever in a lab asking questions, hypothesis-driven questions, and just kind of seeing how one small question can be asked in the lab and you can get multiple different answers. And that process of discovery for me was really, really interesting. And so having those experiences was really important in terms of figuring out what I wanted to do. A second thing I'll talk about is just being involved on campus as well, besides just your research experiences, like finding those extracurricular activities. So for me, that was joining the pre-med science, I can't remember, I think it's pre-med science club or like science club or something like that. And through that club, I was able to be exposed to like, different avenues for like what I could do after my bachelor's degree. So there we were exposed to like, you could go to med school, you could go to any other professional kind of school, you can go try and get a job, things like that. But that also helped me to also build my network as well. So talking to like people who had been in similar situations where they maybe didn't quite know what was the next step for them, or that maybe they were in positions that I could see myself in. So whether that was through my direct mentors, so these people who I worked with before, or people who maybe I looked up on LinkedIn or something and just kind of admired where I saw them in their careers and wanted to sort of learn about how to get to those positions. And so I think kind of figuring out like what was truly important to me by talking to people, doing the actual work, meaning doing the experiences, the research experiences, and the volunteer work helped me sort of decide what was truly important to me and what I was motivated by. And so it kind of wasn't a hard decision after I had kind of figured out like what worked for me and what didn't work for me. And then in terms of selecting my program, I selected my programs based on the kind of research that I found interesting. So at the time, I really wanted to do something involving like microbiology or like infectious disease research. And so when I was looking for particular programs, I just went on Google and looked up schools that had like those kind of programs. And one thing that was really important to me was also finding schools that where I could bridge my interest in like the lab with my growing interest in like public health. So I wanted to be able to see how I could use what I was doing in the lab to sort of guide policy change in terms of on a wider scale in public health. And so when I was looking for programs, I looked for things that were particularly intersecting between those two. Another thing was definitely the funding, right? I looked for schools where international students would be funded because it's not all schools that fund international students. So that was really key. And then another aspect that was really important to me was where I was in the US. I think when I went to undergrad, I was in Augusta, which is like not a big city in Georgia. So I wanted to be in the city. So I think when I was applying, I mostly applied to schools that were in the city, even though like I had to like think about, you know, the downside of that, which is that it's going to be really expensive, but I really wanted like a different experience. So when I was applying, I thought about programs that were in cities that I saw myself living in. And then the last thing I'll say is I also looked at sort of the diversity of the program and even what the kind of future prospects were for students who went to these kinds of programs. And the only way I learned about doing that, the only way I went about doing that was through networking with current students as well as alumni who had gone through the different programs. So just doing informational interviews with people on LinkedIn and things like that. I feel like those were okay. Can we mute that mic? Sorry. All right. And yeah, so I think I'll end there for now so we can keep moving on.
Okay, thank you so much, Chimwemwe and Arnold. So for the next question, you actually talked about it a little bit when you were talking about funding for graduate school. Could you go into more detail about that? How you got funding, how you got the resources to find where to get good funding for graduate school?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So actually that is very program dependent. So funding for master's programs and funding for PhD programs, for instance, are totally different structures. So I would say that the first thing you want to do is when you're looking into your programs, you want to make sure that first thing to do is search their school's website. Because you don't want to like reach out when the answer is already on the website, right? So dig through the financial aid like information on the school's website, and usually they'll tell you like, okay, we found international students, or we do not find international students, or like we provide maybe a particular kind of funding, whether it's like half, and then you supplement the other half with like other options. But I would say like go to the school's websites is number one. And then if you have additional questions or if it's not clear to you, I would say then reach out to the particular schools. So for me, that meant like on certain schools that maybe it wasn't quite evident about what the funding structure was for the schools, I would reach out to financial aid and just explain my situation that I was an international student and I wanted information on how international students fund their education.
First question is
Okay, I'll keep going. And so in terms of that aspect, so a lot of master's programs, for instance, usually don't come funded. So there are ways to supplement that. Like, for example, some schools have like teaching assistantships or research assistantships, which you would have to talk to the faculty members about whether those are available. So again, that requires some level of networking with the faculty members who you might want to work with as a master's student. There are also other organizations that do fund master's programs, and I'm not too familiar with a lot of them, but I know like there's like MasterCard Foundation, for instance, and there are also some other like UK-based ones. So you have to like use Google. I think that's your best resource in terms of finding those particular organizations that will fund like master's programs. For PhD programs, that's a bit different because for most PhD programs, you are funded by either your school or your supervisor with whom you would do your PhD research in. And so that's totally different. So in that case, you'd have to directly message or email particular faculty members whose work that you're interested in. So just to make sure that they even have the funding to cover you. And again, it's also very program dependent. So you just kind of have to do a little bit of research first in terms of finding out what the funding structure for a particular program is. Networking. Yeah, and asking the questions. So I think I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you, Chimwemwe. The next question is for Arnold. So for a student who might not have been fortunate enough to get an internship throughout their 4 years in undergraduate studies, how would you advise them when they're now searching for a job? Because as an international student, it's one of two ways. You either go to graduate school or you need to get a job or you have to go back home, right? So for a student who doesn't really want to go back home right after graduating, but they want to find a job, but they also didn't get any internships during their school time, how would you, advise them on how to go about getting that job?
Yeah, good question. I think maybe the first thing I would say is that there's always like opportunities out there. That's what I believe. And then the second part is that if you haven't had an internship, so I guess what you'd want there is to just be open to the different opportunities. It might not be exactly what you want, but I think for me, even when I was starting, the main thing is that you need to just get your foot in inside the door, right? So as long as you get an opportunity, then that's good, because from there you at least have something that is going to help you build up, right? It's like with new seasons, right? If you're back home, sometimes it's really hard, but once you have the opportunity with new seasons, it just gives you it just opens the door for you, and then what happens next is up to you how you play around with the cards, right? So I think that if you haven't had an internship in all 4 years, still there are opportunities that are waiting for you. What you just have to do is, again, focusing on the application. In this case, you don't have any companies to show on your resume. The question that comes next, I think, I would think about is, have you done anything in the 4 years? Have you been just sitting around, or have you done any projects? If you have done projects, if you have even like written papers, right? Because there's so many things that you can do during college. Either you can have internships over the summer, right? That you can do and showcase that over this summer I was doing this, or you can be doing something else on your own, right? So if you do have something like, let's say that maybe you didn't get internship, but you just chose to be working on a side project, then it's important for you to showcase that and say that even though I didn't have internships, I worked on these projects. I know at school there's like hackathons, and hackathons are not necessarily for tech people, right? You can join the hackathon maybe to just advise the team on the, maybe if it's finance, you can advise and say, you guys have to think about this funding structure if you're going to build this project XYZ, right? Yeah. So I think all that's to say is that there should be something that you have done. If you have zero things, I think then that goes back to you, what you have been doing. But if you have projects, if you have been doing something, even with your school, right? If you've been working on research with your school, the important thing is for you to say that you have done something, and also highlight what impact that has had, both on the people that you worked for, and also maybe even on the goal that was set for that project, and also like how that would help you in sort of making an impact with the company that you're going into. So yeah, I think the main thing is not to just throw in the towel and say there's like nothing out there, but it's just to apply and then showcase that you have what it takes, even though you don't have the experience that is there. Yeah, and that company that you're going into is gonna give you that experience as you build or go up your career ladder and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'm going to ask another question, and either of you can answer this one. What role did mentorship play in the application process, whether it was for jobs or for graduate programs?
Okay. Yeah, maybe I can go first then.
Okay.
Mentorship. Yeah, so I think for me, I received mentorship at different levels throughout college. And I still kind of seek mentorship like right now. And the mentorship that I think I've looked at is more like mentorship where I've worked myself as a mentor, where I mentor others. I see that, I view that as a way of mentorship, because when I mentor someone, I'm also getting to learn from their experiences, and it helped me grow as well. And then also like having people above me like asking questions and for feedback as well. Okay, so the first, like, I think in my applications was with mentorships from engineers from different companies. For example, I had like mentors from Bloomberg. Um, so when I was applying for Bloomberg, like I did multiple Bloomberg programs, and in all situations, I had Bloomberg engineers as mentors, where like we would do lead code questions together, and where we would do even some interviewing together, like mock interviews together. And through that, like that helped me boost my confidence. That even though I didn't go to Bloomberg, with the other companies that I applied to, like I was solid because they gave me that mentorship. They gave me the technical mentorship and the technical skills that I needed, and the ways to like communicate and solve problems, right? Uh, then the other example I'd like to highlight is like with hackathons. With hackathons, I got the opportunity to get mentorship from engineers from different companies as well. For example, in my freshman year, I did a hackathon with Microsoft. That's where I made first contact with Microsoft, because for that hackathon I had like a Microsoft engineer um, in the team, and so we worked on the hackathon project together. So the mentorship there came in the sense that I could see how they work, how they think through the problem, and that helped me in terms of, if I was doing interviews, I at least had an idea about how Microsoft engineers think and how I can apply that and showcase that as I'm interviewing with these companies, right? Now the other bit about like mentoring others, right? So you can see that I'm also learning from other people in the industry, but also at the same time, if I can share what I'm learning with others, it's like really, I think it was a form of mentorship on its own, because number one, it helped me sort of make sure that the skills that I've built, I can share them, but at the same time, like I retain them, like by sharing them with others. And the way I shared like those kind of skills was through like, for example, with CodePath and AdLift, I did for CodePath, I did the CodePath tip program where I did the technical interview prep as a coach. And so I was like still junior and still in college, but so you can see that it's like I'm doing mentorship for other students who are even maybe senior than me, but still that gives me like sort of like a way to work with different people or different students, but also at the same time reevaluate where I'm still weak at, right? So I think that's how mentorship helped, both in terms of um, solidifying my skills and making sure that I understand what I'm doing. And also I challenge myself to not just sit within one position, but always seek to progress in whatever I have learned by helping others and helping myself, I think, along the way. Yeah.
I'll just add that in terms of like applying for graduate school, I think for me, my mentors were really key in terms of sort of guiding, I think that's a good word, guiding my application strategy. So like throughout my whole process of application, so whether it was like my personal statement, writing that, I think my mentors really helped me make sure that my personal statement, for instance, was very clear and concise and truly was authentically me and conveyed the message of why I wanted to go to grad school, why this program was a great experience for me, would be a great experience for me, and how I had intended to use the degree after I was done. Besides that sort of guidance, like my mentors were really key at providing key, like strong recommendation letters that are requirement for graduate school. So having those mentors who were able to vouch for me and just to say that I was the best candidate ever to go to graduate school in that program was really important. And I think even up to now, like for me, like my mentors from like college and my mentors throughout the summer internships I did, I'm still in contact with them. And even today, they continue to provide me with mentorship. For example, like things like career paths as well, like providing me with insights in terms of like how they can support me in terms of what I'm interested in doing, and putting me in touch with people who are doing things that I think I'm interested in, whether it's like putting me in touch with people who are doing particular jobs, or maybe might have information for me in terms of where I see myself going. So I think those were sort of areas where mentors have been really helpful. And yeah, helping me to define what my interests were was also really key for my mentors to help me do.
Okay. Oh, and I want to also add on as well that sometimes mentorship doesn't always have to be like you have to have the official mentor or have to be your official mentor.
Yeah.
It could be just like calling someone even within new seasons and then saying, "Hey, I'm having this issue and I need guidance. How do I approach this?" Maybe you have multiple offers and are trying to like decide how you want to go about that. You can call someone and say, "Hey, I have this situation. I'm trying to decide what should I think about when I'm making this decision, right?" So not just about like saying, "I want you to be my official mentor," and we like sink in and stuff like that, but just having that conversation maybe once upon a time is good. I've always had that with multiple new seasons youth program participants, like where I reach out and say, "Hey, I have this issue. Do you have any thoughts or insights that I could leverage and use? Or have you experienced it as well?" Because if they have experienced it, then they can offer you advice on how they went through that same issue and resolved it. Or
yeah, definitely peer mentors. Always have those too. So.
Cool.
All right. Thank you. So the next question would be for either of you again. How do you approach the decision between either pursuing graduate studies or entering the job market directly? Because, sometimes we don't want to be going to school forever. And we just want to get out of school, start working, get your own place and all of that. So how do you really like decide whether should I go to graduate school or should I just go straight into, the working environment?
I feel like that is a very, very personal question. Like, I think you have to first kind of do some reflecting. So number one, you have to reflect on some of your journey, first of all, and where you are. Like, there's so many things that should go into the consideration, whether it's like your finances. Are you financially like able to go to graduate school at the time? Because everybody's situation is different, right? Maybe like family is dependent on you, for example, like maybe going to grad school wouldn't be the best idea in that case because you're not going to get any money in grad school. I'm just going to tell you that out flat out. So maybe at that time, maybe like going to do a job for a couple of years or something might be the best idea if like that is an important aspect for you. But then on the other hand, it could also be that your interests just like align with going to grad school versus like going to work at that time. Or that the course that you or the degree that you got, maybe it makes more sense for you to go to grad school because maybe there are better opportunities that may open up to you by going to graduate school. So I think the first step is to just assess your situation, like what is your end goal? Like, are you planning on, I don't know, becoming a professor or something? Then you need to go to grad school. Or like, do you want to just go and do you have other like obligations that require that maybe a job is the first step for you? Then do that. And then there's folks like me who were just in the sort of undecided at the time. So I just went and applied to both at the like when I was still in undergrad, and then just kind of after I got the offers, then I decided with the option of just taking a step back before jumping straight into grad school. But I think, yeah, it just comes with like personal reflection and decision making, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually second that. It's more like a personal decision or personal choice. But what would help again is just making sure that you are well informed. And sometimes there's just always too much information that is saying go to grad school or go to this. But if you can get that information at hand, making sure that if you choose to go to grad school, your decision is based on like valid points that you think are valid to you. That way, because it's you who's going to grad school, it's you who's going to full time, and whatever choice that you make, that's on you again. So you have to make sure that that choice you're gonna be comfortable with. Sometimes if it's not gonna be comfortable, because I know that as international students, sometimes the options might be limited, right? So it might still be okay to go with one option, even though you're not comfortable with it at the moment. But you have to just picture yourself maybe after you've done that or after like some years, are you gonna be in the same position or that that is just gonna be like a placeholder at the moment to make sure that you don't maybe like um to make sure that maybe like you don't like lose your visa status or anything like that. So you have to be comfortable as well making what do you call it, making compromises. But when you make compromises, you just always have to know what your goal is, so that if you make the compromise, you won't just be stuck there like forever, right? So if for example you're a freshman and make the compromise to do research when you want to have a tech role, that's okay, because that is gonna come in handy when you showcase your skills, right? That you can work in different things and still make an impact, even though it's not your specific focus area. Yeah.
Okay, that's some good information. Thank you so much. So the next question is for you again, Arnold. Given your
Yeah.
experience, transitioning from interning at Microsoft and then getting a full-time offer there, what strategies would you recommend for us international students or, any other students in the chat who might not be international students to increase their chances of converting these internships and these experiential learning opportunities into full-time
Yeah.
role?
Okay. Good question. So I think when it comes to the internships, again, I like personally, I feel it always go back to what how you have interacted with the team. So it's like now you have interviewed with them. They have seen that you have the potential to make an impact. When they take you in, are you going to showcase that you have what it takes to make an impact, or are you just going to sit around and like wait for the summer to end, right? So I think my advice there is that once you have that opportunity, it doesn't end there. The interviewing itself is very stressful because it almost feels like a course on its own, right? But still, it's like once you have the job offer, it doesn't end then. Uh, and also the learning doesn't end there as well. So I think the main thing really is to go into that opportunity or that job offer with an open mind and also with a growth mindset. The growth mindset is to make sure that as you do your internship, you are open to learning and growing. For example, like for people who are more technical, right? You might have interviewed in Python. You might know just Python as a coding language. But when you go to the internship, you find out you are not using any Python at all. Maybe using C++ or using C Sharp or using JavaScript or using some interesting frameworks that the company use. Because, like, for example, big companies, they have their own internal tools or even internal languages, right? And when you get in there, you have to work with this new tool, this new language, but you've never seen it before, right? So when they hire you, I think in my mind, the assumption is that you're good to work with anything. They can put you into the project without you knowing what it is, and you can execute and deliver. So what that means is to say that if they give you like something new, don't be like, oh wow, they gave me something I didn't even use before, and I don't know how to even execute or do anything with it, right? But you have to be open, and like that's where the growth mindset comes in. That you need to find ways to learn whatever they're giving you, apply it to your project, and deliver the project that they have given you. I think if the team can see your growth over the internship, that actually this person they didn't know this, and also you need to be clear as well with what you know and what you don't know. because sometimes the manager can say, do this, and you've never done it before, and you spend the whole day just figuring out how to do it. But if you're like, I actually don't, I've never used this before. So before executing in the project, I need a window period for me to learn X, Y, Z, right? They can maybe even like recommend to you what you should use to learn and execute. Because if they just say go and do this, and you're like, okay, but you don't even know what you want to do, right? It's gonna be messed up, really, really messed up, because one, you didn't communicate enough about what you knew and what you didn't know. And number two, the manager, if you didn't say anything, then they expect things to be done. Now you're gonna blame them and say they forced this to me and I didn't even know anything. So I think communication is important. Going in with a growth mindset is important. And if the team can see how you have grown and how you have made an impact within the team, I think it should be almost straightforward, depending again on the headcount or depending on the team, how you can get like from internship into full time. But sometimes there are things that can be scary, where the team itself can be scary, the culture can be scary, and you feel that maybe the team is not meant for me, or the experience itself overall is really, really just bad, right? So in those cases, I'm not sure how you can navigate that. But I would say just always be prepared for the return offer. If not, take it as a learning opportunity and try to apply to other companies. So what's that to say is that the return offer sometimes is always not guaranteed. What you want to make sure is that, again, with your growth mindset and also with your learning opportunities, once you have those skills, you can actually showcase them on your resume so that the next company, you are fully prepared for what's to come, right? So that you won't repeat the same things that you repeated if you made some blunders with the other one. Yeah, I think that's what I would sort of advise. Maybe it was a bit long, but yeah, that's what I would say.
All right, thank you so much, Arnold. So we're going to move to the student questions. There's a couple of questions that I have received in the chat. The first one says, how did you ensure that you get hired with the local companies for internships, as majority of the companies want to recruit people that they will employ full-time, but as an international student, you will require future sponsorship?
Yeah. That is a question. You want to take that one first, Arnold?
Yeah, I think you can go first.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a challenge for international students. As somebody who's just like navigated this question as I was applying for post PhD roles, I would say just, I don't know, just being open to the opportunities that are available to us, because at that point there's nothing we can do. Like if the job requires you to have already been like a citizen or resident. So just keep an open mind. Like, you know, sometimes you don't have to like I think Arnold mentioned this, like keep an open mind for like what opportunities are available, like passionate wide in terms of like what jobs are out there. You never know who would be willing to like ride the whole citizen what is it, sponsorship ride with you. So I would say that in terms of when you're applying, obviously they'll obviously ask you like if you ever need sponsorship. It's usually a question that's asked as you're making the application or even in the interview to be asked of you. Be honest, because obviously it will come up again later on when you're required to show proof of your state sponsorship. So be honest throughout the process, because sometimes they ask because they want to be prepared for like when you're given the role and like how they would navigate that process for you. But yeah, I would say definitely be open to different opportunities. So don't just maybe have like one set, like I want to work for this company, because maybe they don't even sponsor people. So just yeah. And then another thing is like reach out to like people who are international students. Like you have some, I don't know how many New Zealand people are now graduated, but there's a lot of us. So like reach out to people who like are in careers that you're interested in getting to, and seeing sort of like what kind of companies they apply to as well, and if they have any sort of insights on how they can approach like those applications as well. Another option is start finding out about how to get citizenship by yourself, right? There are multiple ways, specifically for people who have advanced degrees, like you can like apply for like a self-petitioned type of green card. So there are definitely ways you can sort of go around it. Yeah, Arnold, I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, I do like that actually, that you just have to be open to the opportunities. Because actually I've had like experiences where it's like the company is ready to give the offer, like they call and like we're ready to get you into the team, and then they're like, but what's your citizenship? I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I need visa sponsorship, and then they never get back. It's almost like they ghost you. But they're like, the offer was I could feel the offer, but then it just disappeared, right?
I
And then
one up you and say I got an offer, and then after the fact they said sorry, you can't start because you're not a citizen. So yeah.
So
It
yeah,
happens.
and yeah, so that those things happen, and you're gonna experience them actually. And then the other one is that some recruiters, so I've communicated with some where they're like, our company is not currently sponsoring, but maybe in the future we might sponsor, so we might consider you for the future if you're open. But I've never seen them get back again in the future. So I think as an international student, it's just know that happens, and then you can always just move on to the next one, because even if it's a dream company, if they don't sponsor, then they can't go against the government, because that would be again really bad for them and bad for you as well if you if they can't support your visa in the US. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. I see there's a hand raised from Emina. Emina, please go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. From your talks, the way it sounded as if getting a research internship as a freshman is rare or quite difficult. So do you have any idea why that is? And do you have any tips for increasing our chances of getting a research internship, preferably in biomedical engineering space or computer science space?
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, maybe I can start, Chimwemwe.
Okay,
But
sure.
yeah, I think the way I think I've looked at it, I think it's become maybe more accessible. But it depends also with your school. So I think some advice there would be to check with your professors. I think that's one of the great pathways, because your professors work with you. And also like there are some other, I think it's REUs or REUs, I think. Yeah. Where it's like you go and do research at another college or school. So I think those ones will be good. And you mostly get them through your professors or through your school. So if you can check what your school has to offer and even what your professors have to offer, then I think that would be great. As well as just if your professors do like research over the summer, that would be good as well as a starting point, not just like working maybe in like at a fancy company or anything like that, because sometimes it might be hard. And I think why it's hard is because you're just starting off, and most of what you have on your resume could be coming from back home, right? And sometimes I think I'm not sure if they really consider experiences from back home. So I think that's what makes it hard. And also, I guess it's just that you have no experience, like sometimes. So if you can do on an on-campus job or on-campus research, then you'd have something to showcase when you're applying as well. So that you're like, I've worked on this at my school, and I want to work on that too at this research opportunity. I think they align together, you know. So I'm just so it's like you almost have like your personal statement almost like mapped out there from your opportunity at your school to whatever you're applying to. So if you can get like something with your professors or your school or the connections that they have with other schools, then that's great, because I think that should be a great starting point. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add that. Yeah, totally agree with all your points, Arnold. for me too, like my first summer I didn't get an internship, so I literally just stayed home and like tutored, I guess, for some money. But when I went back to school, I made it a point to seek research opportunities on campus, and that sort of helped me even when because a lot of these research opportunities want you to like write a personal statement, right, when you're applying. So if you haven't had any sort of like experience, it's kind of hard to write that personal statement. So by getting involved in like campus kind of research, even if it's on a volunteer basis, for a start, just so that you can just get your leg in and like start to build out your resume, I think that is really important. Another thing is like, I think at this point, every school has a career services department or office. Make use of that, because sometimes they will have information about internships that maybe that maybe they haven't like publicized or something like that, and maybe they're just looking for a particular student who has this sort of like course experience, and they want to fill that position. So I would say, like, yeah, as Arnold said, your professors, your research on campus, make use of your career services. That's why they're there. And also the career services can also help you, even if you don't have like that experience, like help you craft like a compelling story when you're trying to apply, because they'll help you sort of like figure out like what you've experienced can you now craft like a compelling letter or compelling personal statement when you're now applying for these summer internships. So yeah, I'd say that.
All right, thanks. Okay, can I ask one more thing? Do you have any like summer research internships in mind? Maybe biomedical related summer internships. I don't know, like their programs. Anyone you have in mind?
Yeah. Who is it? Kutema, who has like a resource, like a website or something? Maybe she can circulate that with everybody on the call. Kutema has a really nice resource, a website or something that has like different internships that people can apply to as international students. So I think that would be really key for you. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Princess also has a question. Please go ahead and ask your question, Princess.
Hi. First, I just want to say thank you for like this opportunity and for everything you've shared. It's been amazing. My question is kind of for Dr. Chimwemwe. I'm sorry, I don't know if I pronounced it the right way. So I would say I think you're working in industry now, the new opportunity you got. I just want to ask, like, what made you, like, some people decide to stay in academia, right?
Yeah.
So like what influenced your decision to move into industry? Like, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. The honest big question is money. Kidding. I think going into graduate school for me, so before I got into grad school, I did do like 2 years in industry. So I got to have that sort of like experience and seeing like how research is conducted there and just having that like corporate experience. And I really liked that. And so even when I went to grad school, I was open to like staying in academia. And I did all the things that are required for somebody to stay in academia. So teaching, I taught on campus, and volunteering on different sort of diversity kind of programs where I mentored like undergrads who were coming into our labs for summer research and things like that. But ultimately for me, the decision came because I thought about like just what it takes to be in academia. First of all, there are not many roles, like PI, professor roles that are available, number one, and just like the time it takes. This shouldn't discourage anybody, but like I feel like you have to be really passionate about it, about staying in academia, and just like the time it takes to get to that point. For me, I just thought it was like going to be a huge like cost opportunity loss, because first you're not getting a lot of money, and I didn't feel like I was financially in a position to like just ride out trying to be in academia for I don't know how many years until I get a professorship. It could take anywhere from like some people have gotten positions like 2 years out of their PhD, others it took them like 10 years, right? And I kind of wasn't ready for that uncertainty. And then also I felt like I wanted to make a more direct impact on like the world. And I feel like in terms of health, and I feel like the role that I have now will allow me to do that more than like being in academia would, because obviously when you're doing research in academia, like in the grand scheme of things, how much will what you're doing really matter? That's the question I asked myself. So I really wanted to be like much closer to patients. So in my new role, I'm able to like find or identify different technologies and different medicines that our company can invest in, and then we can then develop for patients in different disease areas. And so for me, that felt like, okay, at least when I wake up in the morning, I know that I could potentially be stumbling upon a new technology that could be the next CRISPR or the next huge technology in biomedical sciences. So that's why I decided to leave academia. So, yeah,
That makes sense. Thank you so
nothing bad
much.
about academia. So like, if it's your passion, if you're passionate about the teaching aspect, like definitely go forward with it. I encourage it. We need more Africans, Black women, Black men in these positions so that the next generation can see that as well. So yeah, definitely. If it's what you're passionate about, go for it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
If there are any more questions. Oh, okay, I see another question here in the chat. Is it possible that we may wait, hold on. Okay. Is it possible that we may please go get a recording for this meeting? Oh, okay. Okay. I think this question is for me actually. But forward, it says also just wanted to ask how best we can know which organizations or unions to apply to for the summer internships. This is Emilda, who's studying a master's in labor and employment relations at Penn State University. So her question is, how best can we know which organizations and union to apply for summer internships?
Oh, how best can we know?
I feel like
Interesting.
Google is your friend, number one. Number two is networking. So I see you're in masters in labor something. Okay. So I would say like identify people who are in positions that where you see yourself kind of going, whether it's like in labor relations, like finding those people who are already in like established careers and just trying to see how like learning from them. Like people like to talk about their careers, so just message them on LinkedIn. Obviously, be authentic and just ask if they can spare a couple of minutes to chat with you about how they got to where they want to go, how they got to where they are, and if they have any advice for you in terms of like what sort of like internships or I think you said unions or associations that you can join to get to like those career paths, I would say.
Yeah. And I'll just add on that, like, if there are some on-campus or like clubs as well that help with that, I think that would be helpful because the clubs can connect you with like different people that maybe might know other people who know other people that you can connect with for the internship opportunities. Yeah. So the networking aspect of it is really key. That if you can build that network, I think it's what we have to in one of the what do you call them?
Slides. Hold up.
Yeah, the slides. I'm not
I need
sure
to
if
figure out.
yeah, maybe next.
We can share the slides and then people can look over it, but I'm trying to find it like this
Yeah,
one.
yeah, the networking aspect of it. So
Yeah.
Okay.
so yeah, the networking is very, very important. So
All right.
There's a
another
hand somewhere, right? Oh.
There's a hand and a question. So I'm just going to ask the question in the chat, and then Prince with his hand up, he can then ask his question as well right after, and then you can just respond to them. The question is, what is the difference between a personal statement and a statement of purpose? Do you always have to submit both?
I think they're the same thing. Anybody can correct me in the chat, but I think maybe what you're asking is a research statement and a personal statement. Now, those are different ones. So a personal statement is more towards kind of talking about like, what motivates your decision to go to grad school and what experiences you've had and how the how your like experiences and who you are as a person like align with like the program that you're applying to and how that program can get you to like the next step of your career and your future goals. And then a research statement is basically just focusing on your research experiences. So that's where now you kind of delve deeper into like specifics about the kind of research you've done, you know, what you learned from those experiences and how like those experiences have now informed your decision to go to graduate school. I hope that answers that. Yeah, but yeah, statement of purpose and personal statement are the same, but research statement is the different one.
Yeah,
Okay.
can I come up with a follow-up with that question?
Sure.
Because the reason I asked that, so I'm looking at like a couple of grad schools and like they require both of them. Like some grad schools require both of them, and I've always
Yeah.
been like confused. Like
Yeah.
like if I'm submitting like a statement of purpose, how is that different from me submitting like a personal statement?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think so. Yeah, the personal statement is what I just described, where like going from top to bottom, like talking about, you know, I don't know how people write these days, but like basically just explaining like, you know, what got you interested in science, your experiences, the program, and how you sort of how your goals and your experiences align with that, and so on and so forth. And then the other statement is now you're basically talking about I guess in a sense like your skills and how in the case of like a PhD, for example, it would be like your research experience skills. So you now talk about the three different or one or two different experiences and sort of what you learned from there.
Okay.
Yeah. Looks like there's another question.
Yes, yes. It says, if I would like to go to med school, when should I consider starting my applications as an international student? And then what are some of the difficulties that international students might face when applying to med school besides funding? And then also, how can I set myself apart when applying for internships?
Yeah, so many questions there. Okay, let's see if I can start. So when should you consider? Definitely as soon as possible, because the thing with med school is that there are different like requirements. So you want to start as early as possible, whether it's in like your first year with shadowing, anything that you can do early, start early. Because you have to shadow, you have to volunteer, you have to do research experience, you have to do so many things. So start early. And then when you're in terms of applying itself, again, a personal question. Some people do it straight out of undergrad. Others like maybe take a gap year. I think it's more common to take a gap year so that you can continue to whether it's study for the entrance exam, which is the MCAT, or just to gain more experience so that your like whole application package looks maybe a little bit better. It gives you more time to sort of build out your application. So yeah, I'll say look at yourself and see what you have right now and see if you're competitive enough to like apply for medical school. Because the next question you asked is what are the challenges besides funding? I think the biggest challenge for international students is there are not enough spots for international students in medical schools. So some schools will maybe admit like even less than 5 international students per year. So there's that as well. So you have so few slots for so many people who are interested in applying for medical school. And then another thing is not all medical schools accept international students as well. So you have to make sure that you're aware of which ones even accept international students and which ones
Which
have
parts? Oh, body.
yeah. And then I guess, yeah, so challenges, yeah, is the getting in part. I haven't been to med school, so I don't know anything else apart from that. I guess even the MCAT I've heard is really hard. I never took it. I tried to study for it, but I closed the book after I opened it. So yeah, you may maybe want to take a look at like different resources that are out there for studying for the MCAT and what kind of questions and things that you have to prepare for are. And then the last question was, how do you set yourself up when you're applying for internships? I think when you're applying for internships, especially with regards to like on the research, because I'm assuming for med school you're thinking about like research and things like that. It's just trying to find a way to be authentic and be uniquely you, because only you have your lived experience. So if you haven't have had any like previous research experience before, like you are applying now, I would say what about your journey now has informed your desire to pursue research, right? So I think in talking about that, whether it was through a class that you've taken where you did some like lab experiments and now you want to dig deeper into like those specifics, or maybe it could be a paper that you read about some really interesting things that are happening in the lab, could be of the person whose lab you want to join to do that research in. So there's many ways you can sort of go around sort of setting yourself apart from other applicants as you're applying. And again, make use of your mentors, whether it's formal mentors or informal peers. And then another thing you should also do is make use of your career services office. I cannot overemphasize this. Like that's what their role is. That is to help you guys get the careers you want to get into. So definitely seek their help out in terms of writing sort of these resumes, these personal statements, and all of that, and your professors as well, because they've gone through what you're going through in terms of applying and things like that. So they have access to some information that maybe other people might not have. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay, thank you so much, Chimwemwe and Arnold. So just to answer a part of Emilda's question, yes, the workshop is recorded and it will be live on the YouTube channel. I will send out a follow-up email with that information, as well as the slides that Chimwemwe and Arnold have prepared for us. You will also have access to those. So Chimwemwe and Arnold, thank you again. If there's anything else you would like to share before I hand over to the meeting chairs to close out the meeting, now's the time.
You go first.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I think overall, like grad school, full-time opportunities, it all comes down to like personal choice. So again, I would say that as you're making the decisions, as you're making the choices, make sure that you have enough information to inform that decision. But also at the same time, as you're starting off like freshmen, sophomore, junior, these were 4 years of college. Use them as a way to help you decide once you get to that like senior year, right? You don't want to just live the whole 3 years and then when you get to the final year, like, okay, now do I want to go to grad school or do I want to go to like full time, right? Use the whole 4 years to inform your final decision afterwards, right? So that when you get there, you already know what you might like or what you don't like. So I'd say use the whole 4 years, not just to trap yourself in one setting, but to open yourself to the opportunities. And then when you get to like full time, you might discover that either it's been decided already or you already know what you want. If you still don't know, then that's still fine. But just make sure that you also have a way of getting into somewhere that will be like a placeholder so that you also are comfortable in that as well. So just make sure that the whole 4 years is not just wasted, right? If you don't get an internship, that's okay. If you tried your best, it's okay. But make sure that you at least have some things to do so that when you get to leaving college, you're not like either going back home, but you have something to do. Because what you want to make sure is that you have something to do when you graduate, either full-time or grad school. That way you can maintain your visa status. But also at the same time, once you go like into this, like after grad school, it's now you're the one like doing everything. Actually, I think when we become international students here, it's like we are already at the driving seat of our journeys. So there's not gonna be anyone who's gonna come and say, "Hey, Prince, tomorrow you have to go to class. Tomorrow you have to do this." It's just on you, and you have to make sure that as the driver of your own journey, you know what you're doing. Yeah, that's how I felt when I got here. That like my parents are not here to say, Arnold, do this now, do this now. It's like now I'm the one responsible, and I have to make sure that my career and also even eating after graduation too, or even before graduation, you have to make sure that you're living healthy and even your career is going in a direction which you like, as well, not what your parents or what your friends like. So I think with that, you just have to make sure that you make informed decisions. If not, just make sure that you at least have some backups, right? So that you can fall back into. Yeah.
No, I like what you said, Arnold. I think being proactive is really key. Either going to grad school or applying for jobs. I think being proactive and starting early, that's number one. And not waiting till the end to try and figure out what to do next. Another thing is, the downside of applications is, yeah, you can get accepted, but the downside is you could also get rejected. So what I want to say about that is, what I would say is just don't let those rejections define you. Try and just pick up and try the next thing. Something will work out. And obviously reach out to people as well, like use your network. Use us as alumni as well if you have questions about, like, you know, more specific questions about the grad school experience or like the job kind of search experience. Like there's many of us now in the alumni who have been through like these journeys. So definitely like reach out to people. You're not in this alone. Don't try and like try and reinvent the wheel. We've all gone through like these, whether it's immigration or I don't know, applications, rejections, all of that. So definitely don't feel like you're alone and reach out to people. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and just to like solidify the point about the rejections, it can be like a really mental toll. The rejections and even maybe the challenges that you would face. So I think it's also important for you to take care of your mental health. So if you're facing like real hardships, make sure you can reach out to New Seasons team as well. Like, hey, I'm facing this challenge at school, or this challenge like when trying to apply, and I'm at a loss. So that you're not just like mentally strained and you can't even move forward, right? So you want to make sure that you take care of your health as well, because you're going to receive tons of rejections.
Oh yeah.
And if you have no way of taking care, like sort of like handling those rejections, there might be a mental toll on you, and you might just end up facing like real hardships. But as Chimwemwe said, don't let those rejections define you, and you just have to be able to like learn and move on to the next opportunity that might be waiting for you, right? So always take care of your mental health as well, and your overall well-being. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Arnold and Chimwemwe. I'm gonna hand it over to the meeting chairs.
All right. Thank you very much for the very insightful question. Probably one of the best we've had so far. And then to everyone, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your time. Thank you for going on this journey with us over the past 4 weeks. We hope these workshops have been insightful and you've worked with a lot. Please, the videos will be up on the YouTube channel. If you'd like to rewatch and just pick a few things that you think you might have skipped. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of our presenters, be it from the first, second, third, or even today. They are more than willing to answer any questions you might have. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us today. A survey might not be sent. Zoe, please confirm that for me, please.
Sorry, can you say that again, please?
Will the survey link be sent at the end of this?
I would like to believe so.
Okay, so yeah, you will get a short survey. Please help us fill that out. It really helps us to plan programs like this better. So yeah, thank you all for joining us today. Have a beautiful rest of your Saturday, and thank you once again for joining us.
Can I say one last thing? Sorry. Yeah, feel free to add us on like LinkedIn and things like that if you want to reach out. So yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.